Good evening, and welcome. Long ago, the samurai walked a quiet path guided by Bushido, the way of the warrior. Rooted in Confucian thought, Zen Buddhism, and Shinto tradition, this code shaped not just how they fought, but how they lived. Through loyalty, discipline, and the embrace of impermanence, they cultivated a stillness that reached beyond the battlefield. Tonight, as you rest and let the day fall away, consider the peace found in purpose, the calm strength that comes from honoring your own quiet code. Now, gently close your eyes. Let's step into the first light of a samurai's morning. The samurai lived by the Bushido code, known as the way of the warrior. This code, shaped by Confucian, Buddhist, and Shinto influences, guided them to build inner resilience through discipline and service. Their lives balanced the arts of war and peace, and they found strength by focusing on loyalty, mindfulness, and the acceptance of impermanence. As you settle in for the night, think about how a simple moment of mindfulness can help calm racing thoughts, just as it did for these warriors centuries ago. Let's begin by stepping quietly into the first moments of a samurai's day. In the gentle hush before sunrise, a samurai's world awakened with intention. The home was still, but not empty. Each sound and scent carried a quiet meaning. The faint aroma of incense drifted through the air, not just as a daily habit, but as a subtle nod to the Zen tradition of honoring impermanence. The careful way a kimono was smoothed or a tea bowl lifted reflected a deeper purpose. These small acts were the first steps in preparing the mind for whatever the day might hold. Morning for the samurai was never rushed. Every movement was deliberate, each gesture a reflection of their inner state. The ritual began with lighting incense, the smoke rising and fading, much like the fleeting nature of life itself. While not every samurai household used incense as a direct reminder of impermanence, the act was inspired by Zen traditions, an acknowledgement of how everything, even the calm of this moment, would eventually pass. The discipline shown in these routines started early in life, shaping a mindset that valued calm focus over haste. Meditation was the heart of this preparation. Seated on the wooden floor, legs folded, the samurai closed their eyes and turned their attention inward. Their breath slowed, each inhale and exhale steady and measured. For them, meditation was not an escape, but a way to face the mind's turbulence head-on. Zen Buddhism, which spread among the samurai in the 13th century, taught them to meet fear directly, especially the fear of death. During times of upheaval, like the Mongol invasions, meditation became a vital tool for steadying the mind. By sitting quietly, samurai learned to let anxious thoughts settle, much as silt drifts to the bottom of a clear pond. This clarity was not a luxury. It was essential for making life or death decisions with calm resolve. Alongside meditation, the recitation and composition of waka poetry offered another way to center the mind. These short, expressive poems were more than art. They were a form of reflection and emotional release. Some samurai wrote death poems, or *jisei no ku*, as a way to face the reality of mortality. For example, Asano Naganori's final poem, written before his death, and Takasugi Shinsaku's poignant lines are reminders of how poetry helped samurai accept impermanence. A simple verse might say, "This dewdrop world, it may be a dewdrop, yes, but even so." Such words were a gentle invitation to appreciate beauty in each fleeting moment and to accept change without resistance. Reciting or composing poetry allowed the samurai to ground themselves emotionally before stepping into a world where outcomes were never certain. Visualization was another quiet practice woven into the morning. Here, a samurai might sit with eyes closed, picturing the day ahead in vivid detail. This mental rehearsal was not limited to imagined sword fights. It included every possible challenge. During battle training, like those at Nagashino, where cavalry tactics were planned, or the Genpei War, where strategy shaped the outcome, samurai would visualize their movements, the sound of armor, the weight of a sword. In their minds, they practiced each motion until it felt natural. This rehearsal did not guarantee victory, but it gave them a sense of agency and calm. By preparing for both the expected and the unknown, they could respond to surprise with clarity rather than panic. This mental training extended beyond personal readiness. Samurai often tried to see the world through another's eyes, whether an opponent on the battlefield or a rival in court. By imagining different perspectives, they became more adaptable, able to anticipate and adjust to changing circumstances. This practice was not about controlling every outcome, but about cultivating awareness, responding thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. The world outside was unpredictable. A peaceful morning could shift in an instant with the arrival of a messenger or the distant sound of a horn. Yet while the samurai could not control what happened beyond their walls, they could shape their own responses. Their morning rituals became a shield against the chaos of life, a way to maintain composure and purpose no matter what the day brought. The heart of these practices was presence. By focusing on the sensation of incense in the air, the rhythm of their breath, or the careful structure of a poem, samurai learned to anchor themselves in the present. Much of the anxiety that comes with uncertainty is rooted in anticipation, worrying about what might happen next. The samurai's discipline taught them to meet each moment as it arrived, dissolving the boundaries between themselves and their surroundings. In this space, fear lost its grip, and clarity took its place. These rituals created a sense of agency. Even as the world around them shifted, the samurai knew they could choose how to meet each challenge. They could not predict every turn of fate, but they could control their own focus and preparation. In a life filled with uncertainty, this knowledge was a source of quiet strength. From the gentle rise of incense smoke to the steady breath of meditation, a samurai's morning was a time for settling the mind and preparing the heart. These routines blended the practical with the philosophical, shaping both action and thought. The calm they found in these moments carried with them throughout the day, becoming the foundation for every decision and every act of courage. As the morning light grew stronger, the samurai stood ready, not just in body, but in spirit. Their rituals had prepared them for whatever lay ahead, grounding them in clarity and calm. This inner stillness would become even more important as they faced the deeper challenges of life and death, change and loss. The practice of letting go, of accepting impermanence and finding peace in the present, would guide them through every trial. This mindset, shaped by Zen teachings, helped the samurai act with precision and without hesitation, even when the world around them was uncertain. As the samurai moved through their morning rituals, another layer of their mental training emerged, one rooted in the quiet discipline of Zen and the art of letting go. This practice was not just an addition to their daily routine, it was a foundation that shaped how they met every uncertainty, every challenge, and every moment of fear. Picture a samurai sitting cross-legged on the polished wooden floor of a temple. The air is cool, and the faint sound of water moving over stones comes from the garden just outside. Sunlight falls in soft patterns through a paper screen. Here, the samurai begins zazen, seated meditation. This is not a place for distraction or haste. It is a space for stillness, clarity, and acceptance. Zen Buddhism became a guiding influence among the samurai beginning in the Kamakura period, spreading steadily through the warrior class from the 13th century. Its teachings offered a way to quiet the mind in a world that was often loud and unpredictable. For people who lived with the constant presence of danger, Zen's focus on discipline, detachment, and presence was not just appealing, it was essential. The practice of zazen helped them cultivate mental discipline, allowing them to meet fear and uncertainty with a steady heart. The first lesson Zen brought was the acceptance of impermanence. Samurai lived in an age where alliances shifted quickly and fate could change in a single heartbeat. Zen teachings did not promise comfort. Instead, they asked practitioners to see the world as it truly was, always changing, always moving. Nothing could be held onto forever, not possessions, not status, not even life itself. This realization could be unsettling, but it also held a quiet strength. The mind naturally wants to cling to what feels safe, but Zen taught that true resilience comes from letting go. Zazen was the heart of this learning. The samurai would sit quietly, hands resting in their lap, breathing slow and deep. The practice looked simple, just sitting, just breathing, but it required effort. Without the usual distractions, thoughts would surface. Worries, memories, fears about what might come. Zen did not ask them to push these thoughts away. Instead, the samurai learned to notice each thought as it appeared, then let it drift by, like a leaf floating down a stream. The goal was not to silence the mind, but to observe it without attachment. This practice had a powerful effect beyond the temple walls. In moments of stress or danger, the samurai could draw on the calm they had cultivated through meditation. Fear didn't disappear, but it lost its power to control their actions. The samurai learned that fear could exist in the mind without dictating what they did next. This understanding allowed them to act with calm and focus, even when everything around them was uncertain. Zen also introduced the samurai to the use of paradoxes, questions or statements that could not be solved with ordinary logic. These were called koans. A well-known example is, what is the sound of one hand clapping? The purpose of a koan was not to find an answer, but to break through habitual patterns of thinking. For the samurai, this training was valuable. In battle and in daily life, they needed to adapt quickly. A mind that was rigid or stuck in old ways of thinking would struggle. The practice of working with paradoxes helped the samurai become more flexible and open to new possibilities. Sometimes, a samurai would spend hours or even days reflecting on a single koan. This was not just a mental exercise, it was a way to experience a different kind of awareness. By letting go of the need for a clear answer, the samurai could move past their usual limits. Decisions became easier, and the pressure to always be right faded away. Letting go of attachment to success or failure, to life or death, brought a certain lightness. It was easier to move forward without being weighed down by fear or regret. Zen's focus on impermanence shaped how the samurai approached every aspect of life, even the most chaotic moments. Imagine the confusion of battle, the clash of swords, the shouts, the rush of movement. Many would struggle to keep their focus in such a storm, but the samurai who practiced Zen learned to stay calm. They did not try to fight the chaos or control every outcome. Instead, they existed within it, letting go of resistance. This allowed them to move with precision, each action clear and purposeful. Death, which many feared, became something different in the eyes of a samurai shaped by Zen. The teachings ask them to see death as a natural part of existence, not an end to be dreaded. For some, the Buddhist teachings of rebirth and the cycles of life offered comfort. The idea that life continued in other forms helped the samurai let go of their fear of mortality. This acceptance gave them the courage to step onto the battlefield with a sense of peace. The influence of Zen reached beyond the mind and into the daily life and culture of the samurai. Its principles of simplicity and understatement shaped their approach to everything they did. The samurai valued tools and art that were simple and unadorned. Each object, each movement, had a purpose. Nothing extra, nothing wasted. This way of living was not about denying pleasure or beauty. Instead, it was about appreciating what was truly needed and letting go of what was not. This appreciation for simplicity could be seen in the way the samurai tended their gardens or arranged stones. A well-tended garden, with its careful placement of rocks and raked gravel, was as important as skill with a sword. Both required patience, attention, and a respect for the fleeting nature of all things. The cherry blossom, which blooms brightly and then falls quickly, became a symbol for the samurai spirit. Life was precious because it was brief. By accepting this, the samurai could live more fully, without being weighed down by the fear of endings. Zen also shaped how the samurai related to others and to their own sense of self. The practice of letting go was not just about fear or attachment to things. It also meant letting go of pride, of self-importance, of the need to always be in control. This humility allowed the samurai to serve a greater purpose, to put the needs of their clan or their master above their own desires. The discipline of Zen made room for selflessness and loyalty. Letting go, as taught by Zen, became a source of strength rather than weakness. The samurai learned that when they were not attached to outcomes or to their own status, they could act with greater freedom and clarity. This was true in battle, but also in daily decisions and relationships. The ability to release what could not be controlled made space for focus and calm. The practice of Zazen and the lessons of Zen were not about escaping the realities of life, but about meeting them with open eyes and a steady heart. The samurai found peace not by avoiding pain or uncertainty, but by accepting them as part of the human experience. This acceptance brought a sense of agency. Even in the face of loss or change, the samurai knew they could choose how to respond. Zen's influence did not erase the challenges of samurai life. There were still moments of doubt, fear, and hardship. But the tools Zen provided, meditation, acceptance, simplicity, and the art of letting go, helped the samurai carry these burdens with more ease. The lessons learned on the meditation mat were carried into every part of life, from the quiet of the garden to the noise of the battlefield. As the samurai moved through their days, the teachings of Zen remained a quiet presence. Each breath taken in meditation, each moment spent in mindful attention, helped build a foundation of calm. This calm was not the absence of feeling, but the ability to feel deeply without being overwhelmed. It was the strength to act with clarity, even when everything around them was uncertain. The art of letting go was not just a personal practice. It shaped the way samurai understood duty, loyalty, and honor. By releasing attachment to personal gain or recognition, they could serve something greater than themselves. This mindset prepared them for the demands of a code that called for unwavering commitment and self-control. As the sun rose higher and the demands of the day grew, the samurai's training in Zen became a steady guide. It helped them meet each challenge with presence and resolve. The discipline of letting go, learned through hours of meditation and quiet reflection, became the ground upon which they built their courage. In the quiet spaces of the temple and the noisy rush of battle, Zen showed the samurai how to move through life with a clear mind and an open heart. This foundation of acceptance and calm would support them as they faced the strict expectations and deep responsibilities of their code of honor. With this inner stillness, they were ready to carry the weight of Bushido, the code that would define their resolve as the day unfolded. Picture a samurai standing at sunrise, armor catching the soft light. What set them apart was not just their skill or strength, but a deep commitment to Bushido, the way of the warrior. This code shaped every part of their lives. It was more than a list of rules. It was the foundation of their choices, their actions, and their sense of self. The values of loyalty, honor, and self-control were not abstract ideas. They were daily practices, guiding how a samurai lived and, when needed, how they faced death. Bushido influenced everything, from the way a samurai wore their swords to how they spoke, worked, and cared for their families. Confucian teachings, Zen Buddhism, and Japanese traditions all played a role in shaping this code. Confucianism, in particular, taught that proper behavior at home and in public built inner virtue. Samurai children learned from a young age that their actions, even in private, mattered. They studied Confucian texts as part of their education, learning that respect, honesty, and discipline were expected at all times. Loyalty was at the center of Bushido. The bond between a samurai and their lord was formal and profound. It was not just a job or a duty. It was a relationship built on trust, obligation, and protection. Hojo Shigetoki, a 13th century regent, advised, "When you serve your lord, do not forget the debt you owe him." These words reminded samurai that their loyalty was both a privilege and a responsibility. It gave their lives direction and meaning. By dedicating themselves to their lord, samurai could move beyond their own fears. Their actions became part of something larger than themselves. This kind of loyalty was not easy. It often meant putting aside personal wishes or even safety. The samurai were human. They felt fear, frustration, and longing like anyone else. But Bushido asked them to act with discipline, to put the needs of their lord and clan above their own. Sometimes this meant making hard choices. A samurai might have to follow an order that put them in danger or required great sacrifice. The code did not promise comfort. It promised purpose. Honor was another core value. For the samurai, reputation lasted longer than life. The saying, "Life ends, but the name and reputation are remembered for generations," guided their actions. Every decision was made with this in mind: how they treated others, how they responded to setbacks, and how they faced challenges, all reflected on their name and their family. This sense of accountability encouraged careful, thoughtful choices. Seppuku, or ritual suicide, was one of the most visible ways samurai upheld honor. The first recorded act of seppuku was by Minamoto Yorimasa in 1180 during the Genpei War. It was not seen as an act of despair. Instead, it was a final way to reclaim dignity after failure or disgrace. If a samurai broke the code or brought shame to their name, seppuku allowed them to restore honor. It was a personal decision, made with clarity and resolve, and it showed how deeply Bushido shaped their view of life and death. Dying with dignity was as important as living with purpose. Training was not only about becoming strong or skilled, it was about learning self-control. Swordsmanship, archery, and other martial arts taught discipline and focus. Each practice was a lesson in patience, clarity, and presence. The goal was to be ready to act without hesitation, even in chaos. This mental training was as important as physical strength. It helped samurai stay calm when faced with danger or uncertainty. Loyalty to a master also changed how samurai saw fear. By focusing on their duty, they could let go of worries about themselves. They fought for their lord, their clan, and their name. This sense of purpose made fear less powerful. It became something to notice, but not something to obey. Loyalty gave them courage and helped them act with a clear mind. Facing death with a steady heart was a defining quality of the samurai. In the tense hush before conflict, a samurai stood composed, aware of what might come. Their mind, already practiced in meeting uncertainty, did not shy away from the possibility of loss. Instead, they met it directly, observing any fear that arose without letting it dictate their actions. This calm acceptance was not coldness, but a form of resilience shaped by years of discipline. Death was never distant or abstract for the samurai. It was a constant companion, woven into daily life and ritual. Rather than ignore it, they made peace with its presence. The samurai lived with the awareness that each day could be their last. This was not a burden, but a guiding truth that shaped their priorities and sharpened their sense of purpose. The idea was simple. By keeping mortality close, they could better appreciate each moment and act with clarity, even when everything felt uncertain. One way the samurai honored this reality was through the creation of death poems. These short verses, composed with the understanding that life is fleeting, offered a space to reflect on impermanence. The poems were not written in fear or despair, but with acceptance and even gratitude for the beauty of the present. For example, Asano Naganori's final poem, written before his death, captured the gentle resignation and clarity that marked this tradition. Hosokawa Gracia, another well-known figure, also left behind words that reflected her calm acceptance of fate. By writing these poems, the samurai gave form to their feelings about mortality, turning something overwhelming into something meaningful. This practice was deeply connected to their Zen training. In Zazen, seated meditation, samurai learned to sit quietly and observe their thoughts, including those about death. They did not try to push fear away or pretend it did not exist. Instead, they noticed it, acknowledged it, and let it pass by without judgment. This skill, developed over many quiet mornings, became essential when facing real danger. The ability to remain present, even when the mind wanted to run from discomfort, was a source of strength. In the stillness of meditation, the samurai practiced meeting fear with a calm awareness, learning that they did not have to be ruled by it. Mindfulness was not reserved for moments of peace. On the battlefield, the samurai relied on this same mental discipline. The chaos of combat, shouting voices, clashing steel, the unpredictable movements of opponents, offered endless chances for fear to take hold. But years of training helped the samurai stay focused. They noticed everything: the angle of a sword, the shift in an opponent's stance, the feel of the ground beneath their feet. Each detail became clear, And in that clarity, they found the ability to respond rather than react. Fear might arise, but it was observed and released, not allowed to cloud judgment or slow the body. This approach to fear is something we can relate to today. When anxiety or worry appears, it's easy to become overwhelmed. But by learning to observe these feelings, acknowledging them, then letting them drift away, we can respond with more calm and clarity. The samurai's practice of zazen and mindfulness is echoed in modern deep breathing exercises and meditation, which also help us settle the mind and return to the present. Just as the samurai found steadiness in the midst of chaos, we can find moments of peace by focusing on our breath and allowing worries to pass without holding on. The samurai also practiced acceptance of outcomes beyond their control. On the battlefield, not every action guaranteed victory or survival. By accepting this, they could move with purpose and without hesitation. Their training taught them to focus on what they could control: their own actions, their own state of mind. This made each movement more deliberate, each decision more clear. They were not reckless, but they did not freeze in the face of uncertainty. Acceptance created space for courage. In the moments before action, samurai often paused to ground themselves. They would settle their breath, letting it become slow and steady, an approach drawn from their meditation practice. This wasn't about escaping the reality of danger, but about meeting it with a clear mind. Breathing with intention helped them remain anchored, even as the world around them grew unpredictable. In this way, the samurai moved with no wasted effort, each step and gesture guided by presence rather than panic. This practice, simple yet profound, is not unlike the deep breathing techniques many people use today to manage stress or anxiety. The ability to face death calmly did not make the samurai indifferent to life. In fact, it deepened their appreciation for each experience. Knowing that everything was temporary, they cherished their relationships, honored their duties, and found meaning in small moments. The awareness of impermanence encouraged them to act with kindness and integrity, both in battle and in daily life. Embracing mortality allowed them to live more fully, making each choice count. This perspective also shaped their interactions with others. The samurai's acceptance of death did not isolate them from the world, but connected them more deeply to it. They cared for their families, honored their commitments, and protected their communities. Duty and loyalty became even more meaningful when viewed through the lens of impermanence. When every moment mattered, each act of service or kindness held greater weight. On the battlefield, this mindset brought a quiet confidence. The samurai did not deny fear, but they did not let it rule them. They moved with purpose, aware of the risks, but not paralyzed by them. Every action was chosen, not forced. This ability to act with intention, even in the face of danger, was the result of years of mental and physical training. The samurai learned to trust themselves and their preparation, knowing that clarity and calm would serve them better than panic or doubt. The rituals and practices that helped the samurai face death were not limited to moments of violence. In the quieter times, they continued to reflect on impermanence, often turning to the arts as another way to process these feelings. Writing poetry, painting, or arranging flowers became acts of mindfulness, ways to honor both the beauty and fragility of life. These pursuits offered a different kind of strength, a way to nurture resilience and find peace, even when the world felt uncertain. For the samurai, The line between life and death was always thin. Yet by meeting this reality with acceptance, they discovered a freedom that many never find. Letting go of the need to control every outcome, they focused on living well in each moment. This is a lesson that remains relevant today. When we accept what we cannot change and focus on our actions, we can find a steadiness that supports us through difficult times. The paradox at the heart of the samurai's approach is clear. By fully embracing the reality of death, they learned to live without fear. This did not make them reckless or detached. Instead, it allowed them to act with clarity, compassion, and purpose. The practices that supported this mindset, meditation, mindfulness, acceptance, are tools we can use in our own lives, especially when facing uncertainty or change. As the samurai moved between the demands of battle and the quiet moments of reflection, they carried this understanding with them. Their ability to remain calm, to observe fear without letting it take over, and to find meaning in each day became a source of strength. In every action, they honored the impermanence of life, and in doing so, found peace. This way of living did not end when the fighting stopped. In the hours away from conflict, the samurai turned to gentler pursuits. These activities, far from the violence of war, offered another path to resilience. Through the arts, they found quiet strength, a steady presence that helped them nurture their humanity and maintain balance, even when the world outside was uncertain. After the intensity of battle and the weight of duty, many samurai turned to quieter pursuits that offered a different kind of strength. The arts became a way to steady the mind and nurture a sense of balance. Here, in the calm of a simple room or the hush of a theater, the samurai found space to breathe and reflect. Imagine a samurai seated on a tatami mat in a small, uncluttered room. There is a gentle quiet, broken only by the soft sound of fabric as they reach for a slender flower stem. Their movements are slow and intentional. Each bloom is placed with care, not just for beauty, but for meaning. This is ikebana, the art of flower arranging. It is far from the noise of war, but the focus it requires is just as deep. For the samurai, this practice was more than decoration. It was a form of meditation shaped by Zen-inspired aesthetics. The act of arranging flowers became a way to practice patience, presence, and respect for nature's fleeting beauty. Samurai culture was never just about battle. It depended on a careful balance between strength and gentleness, between action and reflection. Artistic and cultural pursuits were woven into daily life. They offered a way to find meaning beyond the constant readiness for conflict. The principle of harmony, so important to the samurai's way of being, was alive in these quiet rituals. Whether arranging flowers, watching a no performance, or preparing tea, the samurai brought the same discipline and attention they used in training to these softer moments. Far from being a distraction, these arts enriched their sense of self. The tea ceremony, or shinoyu, was a practice especially close to the heart of many samurai. This ritual centered on preparing and sharing matcha tea in a mindful, precise way. Everything had meaning. The way the tea was whisked, the placement of each bowl, the quiet attention given to each guest. The ceremony was not only about beauty or etiquette. For the samurai, it was a time to let go of outside worries and focus on the present. Each movement was deliberate, inviting calm and connection. But the tea ceremony was more than a personal or spiritual ritual. During the Sengoku period, it became a vital part of samurai social and political life. The chashitsu, a small tea room, offered a private setting where daimyo and warriors could meet discreetly. Here, they discussed alliances, negotiated strategies, or exchanged crucial information. The simplicity of the room and the focus of the ceremony helped set aside the distractions of rank and power, making space for genuine conversation. Sometimes, the utensils used in these ceremonies, bowls, whisks, kettles, became symbols of status. There were even times when tea utensils were given as rewards for military service, sometimes instead of land, showing just how significant the practice had become within the warrior class. These gatherings were also rare chances for samurai and townspeople to meet as equals. In the tea room, social boundaries softened. The ritual created a sense of community, even among those who might not otherwise share a space. The act of sharing tea, in silence or with gentle words, encouraged a feeling of mutual respect. For the samurai, who often lived by strict codes and hierarchies, these moments of connection were quietly powerful. No theater, too, played a special role in the lives of the samurai. During the Ashikaga shogunate, No was promoted and became especially popular among daimyo. These performances combined music, dance, and drama, but in a way that was pared down and restrained. A No play moved slowly, with careful gestures and simple masks. The stories explored themes of life and death, longing and the impermanence of all things, ideas that spoke directly to the samurai experience. What drew samurai to No was not just the artistry, but the way it mirrored their own struggles. The masks worn by performers showed only one expression, so the emotion had to come through in subtle ways. The samurai, trained to keep their feelings hidden and their minds steady, recognized themselves in this restraint. No reminded them that deep emotion did not need to be loud to be powerful. It also offered a framework for understanding loss and change, helping them accept the transient nature of life. Ikebana, with its quiet focus and Zen roots, became a meditative act for many warriors. The practice was not about filling a vase with as many flowers as possible, but about creating balance. A single curved branch, a few blossoms, and the empty spaces between them all had meaning. The arrangement reflected the natural world and its cycles, growth, bloom, and inevitable fading. For the samurai, who faced impermanence every day, Ikebana was a way to honor beauty in the present moment. The careful attention given to each stem was a form of mindfulness, a pause that offered clarity and peace. The arts were not only about beauty or skill, they were a refuge, a way for samurai to process the harshness of their world. A life shaped by vigilance and conflict could easily become hard or detached. But through the steady rhythm of a tea ceremony, the measured pace of a No play, or the gentle focus of arranging flowers, the samurai found a softer side of life. These rituals were reminders that living well meant more than surviving. It meant appreciating what was fleeting and imperfect. The idea of wabi-sabi, which values imperfection and transience, echoed through these practices. A chipped tea bowl, for example, was not seen as flawed but as beautiful, a sign of use, of time, and of the hands that had held it. This way of seeing the world balanced the samurai's pursuit of perfection in battle. It allowed them to let go of impossible standards and find contentment in what was real and present. Beyond calming the mind, these arts nurtured virtues that reached into every part of the samurai's life. Patience, careful observation, and restraint became habits. The same focus that guided a brush in calligraphy or the placement of a flower also shaped their actions in moments of crisis. Mindfulness learned in the tea room helped them stay steady in the face of chaos. What looked like quiet rituals from the outside were, for the samurai, essential training for the mind and spirit. The contrast between these gentle practices and the violence of war was sharp, but it was this very contrast that made the art so meaningful. For warriors who spent much of their lives on alert, these moments of stillness offered relief. They could reconnect with their own humanity, find a sense of peace, and remember that life was more than struggle. The quiet strength they built in these spaces helped them return to the world outside with greater resilience. Through these cultural pursuits, the samurai created lives that were richer and more balanced. Each flower arrangement, each sip of tea, each scene in a no play became a quiet act of resilience. These moments did not change the outcome of battles, but they strengthened the hearts of those who fought them. When a samurai stepped onto the field, they carried with them the calm of the tea room and the clarity found in arranging flowers. These arts became a foundation, supporting them through every challenge. The samurai's life was not defined only by the sword or the armor they wore. It was shaped by these small, steady rituals that built inner strength and softened the edges of hardship. Much like arranging flowers, life for the samurai was about finding balance, choosing what to hold on to and what to let go. These practices were not luxuries. They were essential, helping each warrior stay grounded in a world that could change in an instant. While these arts supported the individual samurai, they also played a role in drawing people together. The tea ceremony, for example, brought warriors and townspeople into the same room, creating moments of shared experience. No performances gathered audiences from all walks of life. Even the quiet act of arranging flowers could be a way to honor guests or mark important occasions. These rituals built a sense of community, even among people with different roles and backgrounds. But perhaps the deepest connections were those formed between samurai themselves. In the quiet of a tea room or the shared silence after a no performance, bonds of trust and loyalty grew stronger. These relationships were built not just on shared duty, but on moments of understanding and respect. The arts offered a way to see one another beyond the roles of warrior or servant, to find common ground in beauty and reflection. As night falls and the world grows still, imagine a group of samurai gathered around a campfire. The glow touches their faces as they share stories, laughter, and quiet moments. In these gatherings, the bonds of camaraderie and loyalty are strengthened. The rituals of the day settle into memory, and the connections between warriors become a source of comfort and support. These are the ties that help them face whatever comes next, together. Within the quiet glow of the campfire, you might notice the easy way samurai lean toward each other, sharing warmth and the soft comfort of company. The bonds that held them together ran deeper than shared duty. They were woven from loyalty, trust, and the quiet understanding that life as a warrior was never faced alone. Loyalty formed the core of these bonds. In the world of the samurai, devotion to one's lord was not just expected, it was the foundation of their identity. Writings from 13th century warriors, like those of Hojo Shigetoki, remind us that a samurai's thoughts were to be fixed on the importance of their master above all else. This unwavering focus shaped every action. Decisions, large and small, were filtered through the lens of service. It wasn't a cold obedience, but a chosen clarity. The samurai knew who they stood for, and that certainty gave them both purpose and peace of mind. Yet, loyalty was not a one-way street. Alongside their devotion to their lord, samurai built strong horizontal ties with their peers. These relationships were shaped by the strict hierarchies of their class. In some domains, like Choshu, The military class was divided into as many as 40 distinct ranks. Even so, the daily realities of training, travel, and battle often brought samurai together in ways that transcended their official status. The complexity of rank could not erase the shared experiences that shaped their days and nights. Trust was earned through these shared moments. On the battlefield, there was no time for doubt. A single glance, the sound of armor shifting, or the way a companion moved could mean everything. The samurai learned to read each other in silence, relying on instinct and the knowledge that their comrades would not hesitate when it mattered most. This trust was not just practical. It was a comfort that softened the harshness of their world. Rituals of camaraderie grew in the spaces between conflicts. Storytelling, for instance, became a vital way to pass time and wisdom. Around the fire, samurai would recount tales from the Heike Monogatari, sharing stories of bravery, loss, and the lessons learned by those who came before. These stories were more than entertainment. They were reminders of the values that defined the warrior class. Through them, the samurai kept alive the spirit of their code, ensuring that each generation understood the meaning of loyalty, sacrifice, and resilience. Simple acts also built connection. Sharing a meal, repairing armor together, or practicing sword forms side by side, each moment became a thread in the fabric of their bond. These routines offered stability in a life marked by uncertainty. The repetition of familiar gestures created a sense of belonging, a quiet assurance that each samurai was part of something larger than themselves. Mutual respect was at the heart of these relationships. The code of Bushido demanded not only loyalty to a master, but also a deep regard for one's peers. Betrayal within the group was unthinkable. It would unravel the trust that kept them safe and strong. The pressure to uphold this trust was immense, and yet it was also a source of comfort. Knowing that your actions mattered to those around you brought a sense of responsibility and pride. The emotional support found in these bonds helped samurai cope with the mental demands of their lives. War was not only a test of skill, but a challenge to the spirit. Loss, fear, and uncertainty were constant companions. In these moments, camaraderie became a shield. Laughter around the fire, a reassuring word, or the simple presence of a trusted friend could ease the weight of anxiety. These connections allowed samurai to share their burdens, making the hardships of their world a little easier to bear. Communication within these groups was often subtle. On the battlefield, spoken words were rare. Instead, samurai relied on unspoken cues, a nod, a shift in stance, the way a sword was held. This near wordless understanding came from countless hours spent together, building a shared language of movement and intent. The ability to anticipate each other's needs made the group stronger and more adaptable in times of crisis. The bonds between samurai were tested most in moments of danger. Imagine two warriors standing side by side as a threat approaches. One steps forward to shield the other without hesitation, not because of orders, but because trust has become instinct. In that instant, fear fades, replaced by a sense of unity. These acts of protection, often wordless and immediate, were the purest expression of the loyalty that held the samurai together. These relationships did not fade when the fighting stopped. The memories of shared struggles, the lessons learned in hardship, and the rituals practiced together continued to shape their lives off the battlefield. The stories told around the fire became memories to be carried for a lifetime. The care shown in daily routines fostered a sense of permanence, a reminder that even in a world of change, some things could be relied upon. Belonging was perhaps the greatest gift these bonds offered. To sit with one's peers, to share laughter or silence, was to know that you were not alone. The samurai's sense of self was tied not just to individual achievement, but to the group they stood with. This collective identity provided a refuge from the challenges of their world. In loyalty to each other, the samurai found meaning and comfort. These connections also shaped the way samurai approached their responsibilities. Decisions were made with the group in mind. Tactics and plans grew from shared understanding, not just individual brilliance. The ability to move as one, to act with a unified purpose, was a direct result of the bonds they nurtured. This unity made them more effective and gave them the confidence to face uncertainty together. The rituals and routines that built these bonds were simple but powerful. Whether it was the careful cleaning of weapons, the respectful way they addressed each other, or the quiet moments of reflection shared at the end of a long day, each act reinforced the trust between them. These habits became anchors, steadying the group through times of upheaval. The samurai's commitment to each other was not limited to times of war. In the quieter seasons, they continued to support and honor one another. Celebrations, memorials, and acts of kindness all played a role in maintaining these relationships. The bonds formed in hardship were strengthened in peace, creating a network of support that endured across years and generations. The sense of connection extended beyond the immediate group. Samurai often saw themselves as part of a larger tradition, linked to those who came before and those who would follow. The stories they told and the rituals they practiced were ways of honoring this legacy. Each act of loyalty, each moment of trust, became part of the ongoing story of the samurai. In the end, these bonds were more than just a means of survival. They were the heart of the samurai's way of life. Through loyalty, trust, and shared experience, the samurai built a foundation that allowed them to face whatever challenges came their way. These connections offered not just strength, but a sense of peace and belonging that endured even as the world changed around them. Tonight, as you reflect on these quiet moments of connection, you might notice how the values that held the samurai together continue to resonate. Their way of relating to each other, their commitment to loyalty and trust, and the simple rituals that built unity, all of these remain quietly present even now. The legacy of these bonds reaches far beyond the firesides and battlefields of the past, offering gentle guidance for how we might find strength and comfort in our own lives. Across centuries, the mindset of the samurai has quietly shaped the way people approach uncertainty, discipline, and inner calm. Their philosophy, rooted in self-discipline, mindfulness, and the acceptance of impermanence, continues to offer practical guidance for those seeking steadiness in a world that often feels unsettled. The enduring spirit of the samurai mind is not just a relic of history, but a living influence, visible in the everyday choices people make to find clarity and peace. The heart of the samurai's approach was discipline. This wasn't about rigid obedience. It was about creating a structure that could hold steady even in chaos. For the samurai, discipline allowed them to meet each moment with presence and intention. This same idea is reflected in the modern practice of mindfulness. Today, people use mindfulness not only to quiet the mind, but to create a gentle order in the midst of daily distractions. Whether through meditation, attentive breathing, or simply pausing to notice small details, the principle remains. A calm, attentive mind is built one moment at a time. This discipline extended into every part of the samurai's life. The way they moved, ate, spoke, and even pause to breathe, all became opportunities to practice presence. By giving full attention to the smallest gestures, they anchored themselves in the present, preparing for whatever came next. This habit of focusing on what is right before you, rather than what may come later, can be a steadying force for anyone feeling pulled in many directions. For the samurai, mindfulness was not a luxury but a necessity. Their world demanded constant readiness, and their minds were often filled with uncertainty and risk. Through Zen meditation, they learned to let thoughts and fears come and go without attachment. The goal was not to empty the mind completely, but to observe each thought as it appeared, then let it pass. This gentle awareness is mirrored in the way people today use meditation to manage stress and anxiety. The practice of returning to the breath, of noticing thoughts without judgment, is as relevant now as it was centuries ago. It's easy to imagine that a warrior's life was all sharp edges and constant tension, but the truth is more complex. The samurai understood that true strength came from facing chaos with composure. Their training in Zen Buddhism taught them that clarity and calm were not signs of weakness, but of resilience. The ability to pause, to breathe, and to notice the present moment is a skill that can help anyone meet the demands of a busy, unpredictable world. One of the most profound lessons the samurai offer is the acceptance of impermanence. They lived with the knowledge that everything, victory, loss, joy, and sorrow, was fleeting. This was not a source of despair, but a reason to appreciate each moment more fully. The practice of writing death poems, for example, was a way to reflect on the beauty and brevity of life. In just a few lines, samurai captured their feelings with honesty and grace, turning uncertainty into gratitude. Today, this approach finds echoes in practices like journaling or mindful reflection, where people pause to acknowledge what is passing and to find meaning in what remains. The samurai also valued visualization and present moment awareness, especially when preparing for challenges. Before entering battle or facing a difficult task, they would mentally rehearse each step, picturing the movements, the sensations, and the possible outcomes. This practice, rooted in Zen teachings, helped them enter a state of deep focus, what we now call flow. In this state, distractions faded, and each action became clear and purposeful. Modern research shows that visualization and present moment awareness can help people perform better, whether in sports, work, or creative pursuits. The samurai's use of these techniques demonstrates their timeless value. While much of the samurai's legacy is about personal discipline, they also understood the importance of community and shared purpose. Bonds of loyalty and trust were central to their way of life. The support of peers and the strength of shared values helped them face hardship and uncertainty. Today, these lessons remind us that resilience is not built in isolation. Reaching out to others, building connections, and finding support in community can make it easier to weather life's storms. In a world that often measures worth by productivity or constant progress, the samurai mindset encourages a different approach. Rather than rushing through each day, they teach the value of pausing, of reflecting on what truly matters, and of aligning actions with personal values. This sense of purpose gave meaning to their choices and helped them find clarity even in difficult times. The idea that each action should be guided by intention rather than by fear or habit is a lesson that remains relevant. The samurai's focus on simplicity and the stripping away of excess is another legacy that continues to resonate. In their arts and daily routines, they practiced letting go of what was unnecessary, focusing instead on what brought meaning and balance. This principle is reflected in modern movements toward minimalism and mindful living. The idea is not to deny pleasure or beauty, but to find contentment in what is real and present. By choosing what to hold on to and what to release, anyone can create a life that feels more balanced and fulfilling. Applying these ancient teachings in the modern world is not always easy. The pace of life is fast, and distractions are everywhere, yet it is often in these moments of overwhelm that the samurai's wisdom becomes most helpful. When life feels too busy, the simple act of pausing, of taking a slow, mindful breath, can bring clarity and calm. This is not about escaping from problems, but about meeting them with a steady mind and an open heart. You might consider trying a small practice inspired by the samurai before you drift off to sleep tonight. Find a comfortable position, close your eyes if you'd like, and take a slow, deep breath in. Hold it gently for a moment, then release it. As you breathe out, let your thoughts settle, noticing each one without judgment. With each breath, invite a sense of calm and presence. This quiet moment is a way to honor the samurai tradition of mindful awareness, a simple act that can help you find steadiness even when life feels uncertain. The samurai's legacy is not about living without struggle, but about learning to meet each challenge with resilience and grace. Their acceptance of impermanence, known in Japan as mono no aware, teaches us to appreciate the fleeting beauty of each moment. Rather than clinging to what cannot last, they found meaning in what was here and now. This gentle awareness can help anyone find peace, even when faced with change or loss. As you prepare for rest, let the samurai's approach to life guide your thoughts. Notice the small details around you, the softness of your pillow, the quiet rhythm of your breath, the gentle weight of the present moment. Allow yourself to be fully here, letting worries drift away as you focus on what is real and immediate. Their mindset reminds us that peace comes not from the absence of difficulty, but from the way we respond to it. With each mindful breath, you practice the same resilience that carried the samurai through their days. The lessons of their journey are not distant or unreachable. They are woven into the choices you make, the way you meet each moment, and the care you give to yourself and others. Tonight, as you settle into stillness, carry with you the quiet strength of the samurai mind. Let their wisdom be a gentle companion, helping you find calm in the midst of uncertainty and appreciation for the fleeting beauty of each day. With this steady presence, you are ready to move forward, meeting whatever comes next with clarity and a peaceful heart. As you reflect on the samurai's journey, remember their simple yet powerful practices, like sitting in quiet zazen or composing a thoughtful death poem, to steady the mind and accept change. Their way of life showed that inner calm comes from how we respond to challenges, not from avoiding them. The word samurai means the one who serves, and tonight you can honor that spirit by serving your own well-being through a small ritual, perhaps pausing to breathe deeply or writing a short reflection before bed. Thank you for listening as you wind down tonight. May you find a gentle sense of balance and rest.